I feel at this point it's become more of a cinematic movement by India.
Is it that this pan-India movement is more catered to the Hindi audience?
As big as it is now, I don't think a lot of Hindi audiences knew or like were exposed to a lot of Malayalam, Tamil, or Telugu movies.
I think there are some issues with pan-Indian cinema.
Pan-Indian cinema kind of overshadows your rich storytelling.
Welcome to the Pan India project. My name is Rohan, aka the Indian Cinema Junkie, and for today's episode, we're here to discuss Pan India cinema. Now, what comes to your mind when I say Pan India cinema? Now, in the studio with me today, I have desidharsh. Welcome to the Pan India project.
Hi, Rohan. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Welcome to the Pan India project. So, when I say like Pan India cinema, how would you describe it?
So, the way I would describe Pan-Indian cinema, I would say I feel at this point it's become more of a cinematic movement by India. The way they market their movies, their productions, the distribution of their movies, it's all to appeal more of a national sense in India rather than a regional. And instead of it being rooted in regional languages such as Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, specifically in those sections, it's strategically designed to reach multiple linguistic markets.
Yeah, because even like to describe it, I don't think there's one set definition. Like for me, I would say like it's a film which is like open to like like for everyone, and that is dubbed in multiple languages. But then at the same time, there might be this thing because is it just a way of saying these are like non-Hindi films for the Hindi audience? Is it that this pan-India movement is more catered to the Hindi audience?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's catered to to Indian audiences, but I do see where you're coming from because before streaming became as big as it is now, I don't think a lot of Hindi audiences knew or like were exposed to a lot of Malayalam, Tamil, or Telugu movies. For example, I was one of them. If it wasn't for streaming, I wouldn't have watched the amount of Telugu or Tamil movies that I did. So I do see where you're coming from, but I feel like it's always been there and it's always been um, like a way of the type of movies that people go and watch. It's always been available to people to watch. So I think it's just because it's become I don't want to say a norm, but for lack of words, I'm going to say a norm for Hindi audiences to now watch multiple languages. I think that's also why a lot of remakes aren't really working in Bollywood now because uh, they're now open to like a multiple array of languages. It's easier for them to watch the original than it is to rewatch the remake.
Yeah, because going back to that remakes that you mentioned, I mean, I think there was a time for it, like back in the 2000s
Yeah,
and stuff. Like you had Gajni was probably the biggest one and like the most pivotal one in that
it
shift
it
of like,
it, it was the first 100 crore movie for Bollywood,
yeah,
so it
exactly.
definitely was
Yeah.
a pivotal
I mean, you've had
shift.
loads. Yeah, you had loads of remakes. Like Wanted was a big one for Salman Khan that kind of gave him the like box office era that he had back then. And like now you're right about remakes not working because you've had like a few films like Love Yappa, Baby John. They're not working. And I think
Yep.
now you're right because we are exposed to streaming services and I think we're more accepting now. Like we will watch the original one and then there's no need to make the remake, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But I feel when it comes to pan-Indian cinema, it's it's more about the scale and the intent of it. So they market it because they market it nationally. They try and get they try to get actors who have that multi-regional appeal, as well as they try and get larger than life stories. So if you look at just a few examples, Bahubali, which was the first movie to start this whole pan-Indian um, era that we're in. And then if you look at Brahmastra is also a pan-Indian movie, which I know a lot of people don't like, but um, it's still considered a pan-Indian movie. Others would be like Robot 2.0, or well, it's called 2.0. But yeah, it's just built for a larger scale. If I think people look for that when it goes to movies now. I think after COVID especially, people don't want to go to the movies just for a one-time watch or just a nice family entertainer that you can watch once. They want to watch a larger than life, take their mind off everything. So I think when it comes to pan-Indian movies, they really try and make it steeped in national culture or culture that um, tries and blends every uh, culture that there is.
Yeah, and you mentioned how Bahubali started it because I was going to ask you, where did you think this all started? So would you say it was Bahubali was the film
It
that kind of
it
started
it,
this
it
whole
was
movement?
it was definitely Bahubali because Bahubali was such um, a pivotal part of cinema because it it started to get people to recognize every person that's in it and basically the brilliance of S.S. Rajamouli, even though they didn't need to know because he was brilliant way before then. Um, but yeah, Bahubali became such a great phenomenon that the sequel is now the second highest grossing movie of all time, next to Dangal, which can can show you that pan-Indian cinema, when done right, is actually a very great use of cinema or trope of cinema for Indian cinema.
Yeah, because like you mentioned about like how much money roughly Bahubali made, right? But like I think it is a good way to make money. Like it generates a lot of money. Like let's just look at now, what was it last year? Pushpa 2, right? It
Mm,
basically became this box office monster and
yeah,
took so much money. Like, and like even on IMDb, if you like search, so if the highest grossing Hindi film, Pushpa 2 is actually number one. So this
really.
whole Pan India movement, yeah. And so this whole Pan India movement means that a Hindi film doesn't need to be the highest grossing Hindi film. Telugu film doesn't need, like now it's come to a point where another film can actually break records because even in the Hindi belt, like the top 10 highest grossing films, like I think it's in India or something, three of them out of 10 actually have been pan India films like Bahubali 2, Pushpa 2,
Mm,
and KGF 2. Like they've
yeah,
been, like, they've taken a lot of money. And I think maybe as well it's the genre, like they're Masala films, right? That's what
mm,
pretty much they are. And you mentioned about the OTT COVID whole thing. And maybe back then, because that's something that we were missing, like on Netflix and stuff, it gave people something to look forward to as well, right?
yeah. I think uh, because again, coming back to the whole COVID and OTT, I feel like a lot of people are during that time they were missing going to the theaters and they were missing some great entertainers. And I think that's also another reason how cinema has changed after COVID as well. And I think now there's been a lot more pan-Indian releases. I think that's an avenue for uh, cinema, sorry, for movie makers to start marketing their movies in a larger scale. If you look at recently, Chava and Kesari 2, they first released the movie in Hindi, and then after a while they started to release it in Tamil or Telugu. I don't know whether it was both or I think it was Tamil for both of them. Um, Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that is a pan-Indian movie, but it still is a way to break the norm of just having it released in one language and having it be available to different languages so that people can relate to it more.
Yeah, and I think like even if we look before the like COVID era, before the Bahubali era, I think we did get a glimpse of what this could be like. Because if we go back to like what the 90s now, Rajnikant, appeared. He was big in Tamil cinema, right? But then
Yes.
he started to appear in a few Hindi films with like Amitabh Bachchan and stuff.
Hmm.
So we kind of saw, like actors working in multiple languages, and maybe it was for the film instead of, like their presence. Like if you look now,
Hmm.
it's more like, oh, which actor do you want to work with? It's not like, is this maybe role suited for this character, if you know what I mean.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because yeah, and even I think for me, like if we look at a Tamil film like Robot, the first one, I think I watched it in the cinema, but it was in the Hindi version. So they
Same.
were doing it in. You watched it as well, yeah, in the Hindi
Yeah, yeah.
version.
The for Robot I watched in the Hindi version, but then when 2.0 came out, I think I watched it in Tamil. So, and there was no other option. There wasn't like Hindi, Tamil. I think the other cinemas were booked out completely, but still it allowed like different genres of not different genres, sorry, different languages to be shown through cinema, not just Bollywood and Hindi cinema is like the most prevalent one.
Yeah, because like even like as I mentioned about like the actors going back in the 90s and stuff working. Like that was maybe a thing, would see like the kind of maybe a few crossovers there and there.
Hmm.
Even like someone that was in Bollywood now, Kriti Sanon, I believe its first film was actually like a Telugu film. Like even with
Right, yeah.
actresses, because she did one with Mahesh Babu as well. Like even some actresses, I think Priti Zinta's done one with him. Like even Priyanka Chopra's first film was with Vijay. Like there has been that kind of glimpse of maybe what it could be. But now maybe it's like the audience and like Indian cinema as a whole has maybe just stuck a name for it. Because can you just call it Indian cinema, or do you want to call it like something else? Because Indian cinema is quite a broad name, right?
Right, right.
And if you
Yeah.
say pan India, like a pan Indian film, then maybe I don't know, maybe you have a bit more understanding that okay, now you know that that film's dubbed in multiple languages, so it's more accessible. But if I was to ask you what are the benefits of pan Indian cinema, what would you say?
Um, the benefits of it, I think one of them would be you could have a shared cinema, so more cultural integrate, more cultural integration and unity. So it allows for a shared cinematic experience rather than people coming to a movie uh, being not really relating to it very much. It kind of merges the diverse Indian identities onto screen. Another one I would say is that it kind of elevated South cinema because a lot of
Mm.
people didn't really take it seriously before, or they didn't take it as highly as Bollywood. But now a lot of people are saying that no, it is as prevalent as Bollywood because of their storytelling and the the cinematic space that there is. It led an innovation and that even back to what you're saying, um, like majority of the top 10 highest grossing movies are now uh, Telugu led or Tamil led movies. So it's always been a prevalent industry, but just it wasn't taken as seriously as Bollywood because nobody had a nobody had a way to watch it or nobody had a way to access it. Another thing that I'd say is for me it would be technical brilliance if it comes down to the VFX and CGI and the cinematography as well. If you look at the recently now with the Ramayana, it is a pan-Indian movie and Yash is there and they're getting a
Yeah.
action director from Mad Max. So they're bringing different cultures into one and making it they working hard into making it a technical brilliance. Another thing I would say is Brahmastra. I love Brahmastra, so I am going to mention that a lot. As much as
Yeah.
it had, as much as it had faults. It's not perfection, but the CGI and the VFX were great because they knew they were reaching out to a wider audiences. So they knew that they needed this movie to look great visually and VFX wise. Another thing I would say, for example, also RRR, they had brilliant VFX and it became I think it's the fifth highest grossing movie of all time. It got a lot of praise. It won an Oscar and a Golden Globe. So
Mm,
I think with pan-Indian movies, they try and get the technical aspect of it well done. Another thing I would say is it kind of correlates with the cultural integration and kind of has this mass appeal and entertainment value. So it has like high entertainment a quotient, like the action, the drama, it's all present, it's all presented on a grand scale. If you look at Pushpa 2, now I'm not the biggest fan of Pushpa 2, but I would say the
me
mass
too. Me
appeal,
too.
but I would say the mass appeal of that movie was on another level. I think that in another way kind of carried the movie, and yeah, it just clicked with audiences and the style, the certain nuances that the characters do. Again, Pushpa 2, the shoulder up, everybody was doing it after that.
Yeah.
It kind it kind of just it kind of just allowed there to be this one unison of entertainment and appreciation for the movie by not just one specific group, by everybody. And I would want to say that it does have economic benefits as well, because if you look at all of the pan-Indian movies, they do really they make money because again, it panders to every single region of language. So if you look at your Animal, your Pushpa, your KGF, your Brahmastra, even Brahmastra during a time where movies were not working, it was it was the highest grossing movie of that year, over 400 crore. And that was unprecedented for a time of COVID where movies were not even making over 10 or 20. So I feel
Yeah.
now that because it reaches a larger audiences, it allows the movies to make more money. So that's another reason why if you see as of recent Java and Kesari are maybe marketing to different languages so that they could get more money. And another thing I would say is it allows different actors to work together and create this experience. If you look at War 2, as much as everybody is having their criticisms about it, you're having Junior NTR and Hrithik Roshan on screen, and that is a powerhouse of a cast. Regardless of
Yeah.
who else is there, to the two leads one of the biggest names in their respective regions. Again, I know
Mm,
it's being heavily criticized, the teaser. I'm one for it. I love it. I think it's exactly what it needed to be, and yeah, I think that's some of the benefits I can think of pan-Indian cinema.
y- yeah, I mean, you're right about the collaborations. I mean, you're right. You touched on War 2. I mean,
Mm,
just the two of them alone would probably be enough to sell the film. And like,
100%.
let's not forget when both of them dance together. Like,
Oh,
I can't wait to see them
I
both dance
cannot
together.
wait.
It's just gonna
It
be like,
it I feel like it's gonna be as popular or a little bit more popular when Tiger and Hrithik were together. Because a lot of people were excited for that dancing. And when JJ Shiv Shankar came out, I remember that I did not sleep that entire night. I was like, I have to watch it as soon as it releases on YouTube. And I think I'm going to be the same for War 2. I'm very excited for that. And even before everybody saw the teaser, they were like, it's Junior NTR and Hrithik Roshan. It's going to be a
yeah.
powerhouse of a movie. And I know a lot of people are having their doubts about it, but it's not going to change the fact that it's going to make money and people are going to go watch it regardless.
Yeah, you're right. So I think the collaboration is a big thing, and you're right about the money because the potential that these films can take are like amazing. Because there was this interview where a critic interviewed Sandeep Reddy Wanga, and they were like, "You've given Ranbir Kapoor your biggest film, you've given Shahid Kapoor the biggest
Mm,
film, but like now you're doing one with Prabhas. So is it like they mentioned 2,000 crore? So it's like the scale for pan Indian films is just mental. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a good way to get more eyes to a product because I prefer watching it in the original language, but I know that's not
mm,
everyone's taste, right? So some people will want to watch it in a dubbed version, so it's more accessible to them.
mm.
And is there anything else? Yeah, they are fun. Don't get me wrong. Like RRR, they are big scale movies. I mean, even going to Rajamouli's films, like the way he's been able to craft it, he's such a clever filmmaker. But even going before that, like he did Eager as well, and I believe it's called Maki in Hindi as well.
Maki, yes,
Like
yes.
he's
So
just yeah.
even when you mention it now, I'm trying to think, okay, what is the movie? But then I did watch it, but I watched it in the Hindi version. And I remember that being the most, when I was small, I was thinking this is the most ridiculous thing that I've seen. But now that I've grown up, I've realized actually the technical brilliance is actually better or is more advanced than it was for its day. And again, that just, as you said, it it's a nod to his S.S. Rajamouli's brilliance as a filmmaker.
Yeah, and you're right. Yeah, just that creativity, brilliance. But now I think there are some issues with pan Indian cinema as well. Because for me, okay, this is one which annoys me so much. But when people, when people don't dub their own voice in a certain language, I just find it hard to, it just annoys me. Like, I think that's one issue I would
I
say that I find
I
within pan Indian
I do
cinema.
get what you mean. I think a lot of people don't really take very, it's a very small nuance when it comes to dubbing, but um, I don't think people the makers especially look at that as a priority when it comes to everything else that goes around the movie. And of course, a movie takes almost over a year, maybe two, maybe 3 years to make. But if you look at Rajamouli's S.S. Rajamouli's movies, he makes sure that the dubbing is as close as it was to each region. He makes the dubbing of importance, and he makes it seem as if it's not like let's say the mouth is moving to words that the dubbing isn't saying. And I've noticed that very, very often with his movies. If you look at Bahubali, RRR, and I'm not entirely sure about Makki, but if you look at his recent works as of late, you can see that the dubbing is almost to the T of what it is. If you look at the Hindi version of Natu and the other versions of it, you can see that the lip sync of the song is as close as it was to the original. And a lot of people don't do that. If you look at Kalki, for example, it different languages that it was in, it seemed like the dubbing was off or like, and is that isn't a benefit for it because it kind of makes the audience have a disconnect with the movie. Like it's saying,
Mm,
"Oh no, you just it's in for an example for me, it says, "Oh, you're not really putting enough of an effort into the movie for me to care in my language. Why should I care and going to watch it if that makes any sense?" Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I do get what you're saying.
Because I think now there's technology where they could now use AI, right? But I think with that
Right,
it comes
right.
a cost. Like if they try and use AI to dub
Disingenuine.
a voice in, I don't know if that will kind of, because we don't obviously know how accurate it would be at the same time, right?
Yeah. Um,
That yeah.
Yeah, and I think, see, now AI is a whole other story because I feel like it kind of cheapens what you're trying to do with the movie. If you look at, uh, I don't know whether Bollywood is doing it recently, but I know a lot of Hollywood movies, they are starting to use AI. The only thing that I can think of as of recent would be, um, the one of the Marvel project, was it Secret? Not Secret Invasion. They had an introduction where it was specifically solely AI, and it created a little bit of an uproar because firstly, it didn't feel intact with what the story is trying to do, and secondly, it kind of takes people out of jobs, and I think that's the main issue, that it kind of takes away jobs from people that who could have done a better job than the AI could have done, because I feel the AI makes it very, it cheapens the quality of what it tries to do. I know Bollywood is starting to do that. I saw Ayushmann do a music video and it was solely AI. Everything was AI. He was in AI, uh, driving a motorbike in AI, and it was like a release of one of his newest songs that he does. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying this cheapens everything that you're doing. It doesn't feel genuine because one thing AI does, it doesn't capture the essence of what you're trying to capture. If I saw recently Bul Chuk Maaf, they recorded in an actual city. It wasn't CGI, it wasn't VFX, and it looked so much better knowing that
Yeah.
this is an actual city that you're recording at, and it just made the experience seem so much better and more genuine, and it doesn't really cheapen the 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 scene that you're watching. So, yeah, AI, it is a occurring thing, and it is something that is very prevalent, and unfortunately, people are going to use it, but hopefully that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah, and also you mentioned something earlier about films taking 2 to 3 years. I don't know if that's another thing because that means actors, you know, are only going to do one film every 3 years. There's not like a
Yes.
continuous thing like there was back in the day, which like let's I'm gonna take Malayalam film
Hmm.
industry here for example. You have Mohanlal, Mammootty, like they must be in their late 60s or around that. But still today, they've literally had both of them have had 2 films come out already in this year. Like they are working. I mean, obviously you can look at the budget and the time needed, but even at their like later age, they're still doing multiple films in a year. And I think maybe that is the downside of pan Indian cinema, where actors can only do one film every 3 years as well.
Uh, See, with
Like,
that, I don't necessarily mind that. I get where you're coming from, that you would want to see some of your favorite actors come do a lot of movies a lot and not have it be like 3 years. Like Hrithik Roshan, his last movie was Vikram Vedha, which was 2022. Yeah,
okay.
2022. And no, I lie. The Fighter was his last movie.
Oh yeah,
uh,
yeah. 2020, yeah, last year, beginning of
Last
last
year,
year.
last year. Okay, that was a bad example. I'm going maybe Shahid Kapoor. I think his last movie was Jersey. I might be
Yeah,
before
or
Deva, and
Deva.
that was
Oh, before,
2022.
yeah.
Um, so, and if I'm not mistaken, both of those were shot in different languages, or was it was just Hindi? Um,
I think, I think Deva was just in Hindi, from what
oh,
I.
the remakes.
From,
I'm confusing. I'm
yeah, oh
confusing
yeah, they're both
the
remakes as well.
remakes. Uh, but yeah, but uh, specifically on the point of the movies releasing every 3 or 4 years for a specific actor. As much as I would like them to have a lot of movies, I would rather them work on perfecting the movie that they're trying to do than try and pull a Akshay Kumar and release 10 movies a year or something, because
Yeah.
that man has not been having success when it comes to ball anything as of recently. Apart from Kesari 2 and um, what was the other one that was like fighter? Skyforce? Skyforce.
Oh, Skyfall.
Um, yeah, yeah. So I do get where you're coming from. Um, but personally for me, I feel they should rather focus on the movie that they're doing rather than releasing it. A great example, Amir Khan. Amir Khan, uh, Lal Singh Chadda, as much as it was a flop, it was done for years upon years, and it was a very beautiful movie. And he took his time into making the movie because he knew that the original Forrest Gump was such a revered movie that he couldn't waste it on getting the rights and actually making the movie. So it took him a couple of years, and if I'm not mistaken, that movie also came out in 2022. And now, 3 years later, he's making his next movie, Sitare Zameen Par. which is a sequel, but that's another topic when it comes to Bollywood. But yeah,
But
I do get where you're coming from when it comes to that.
and I want this will go into my next point as well. But you mentioned Amir Khan. But do you think his films are pan India? Because I don't think he tries to do that. I think maybe he just tries to do a film and then you like it or you don't. Like, do you know what I mean? Does he
Yeah,
cater
yeah.
for pan India?
Well, I feel like every every movie tries and caters for a specific audience. See, that's another thing with pan-Indian cinema. It's not solely because it's different languages coming together. It's about collaboration between each industry. And when it comes to Amir Khan, I feel like because yeah, he's a very intellectual mind when it comes to his movies. Sure, he'll have his few misses like Thugs of Hindustan, but for some reason I do love it. Um, or like your Doom 3, but that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people do love Doom 3. Um, but I feel like he is trying to, yeah, in other words, I feel like he is one of the last few stars of Bollywood. So I think his name alone will draw everybody to the cinema. I think nowadays people don't, they don't just want the star, they want the whole package when it comes to a movie. They want
Mm,
good music, good storytelling, um good cinematography. If there is VFX in a movie, great VFX, great you just basically have a lore to your story. If one example that I can give that wasn't a pan-Indian movie, but for me it was an incredible work and which would be Stree 2. I feel
yeah,
they they made their universe so well that people went to go watch it, that they were invested in the storyline way before this was ever a universe. Because the first three movies
mm,
before this universe came out, it was kind of like a cult classic because it wasn't highly successful. It was just a clean hit. And then they started making this universe. And when 3-2 came out, it just broke records. I think it
yeah.
made over 800 crore or something. And
It's gone mental. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but rightfully so. I cannot tell you anything wrong with that movie. I feel
Yeah.
it was one of the few movies as of recently that I genuinely was laughing and crying, like laughing and tearing at the same time because of how funny it was. The cinematography was great because they didn't necessarily use VFX sets apart from the final act. The VFX
Yeah.
was still good. The music, till this day, I'm listening to because I can't, there's nothing new for me to listen to. Not to say that there's nothing um, new that's good, but just the music was so good. And the acting from everyone when it comes to the comedy was so good. So, back to your question, when it comes to is Amir Khan like a pull for is he catering to pan-Indian audiences? I feel that it doesn't necessarily have to be um in different languages for people to watch it. It could have those few certain instances where people relate to it, invest in it, and want this movie to succeed without it having any different languages to it. A recent example, I feel, would be Java. I'm not sure if they released it before. I know they released it in Tamil and Telugu, but they also had Rashmika in it. Um, in my head, it was a pan-Indian movie. As much as I don't think it was catered or released to be a pan-Indian movie, but I feel because it talked to a larger sense of people. If uh, I think it was Maharashtra's, if it was catered to, because Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj was a Maharashtra, so it wasn't necessarily towards North or South
Yeah.
Indians. It was for everybody to watch. And again, a lot of people do have their reserves when it comes to that movie, especially because for some people, uh, it promotes like Muslim bashing, I would say. Uh, but apart from the criticisms, I think it just depends on the quality of the movie that draws people.
Yeah.
So Amir Khan is a man who he does bring quality when it comes to his movie. So I think that's the difference you can pull when it comes to an Amir Khan. Um, because if you look at a Tiger Shroff, for example, he's done some pan-Indian movies. If I'm not mistaken, Gunpat was a pan-Indian movie, um, but that movie was absolutely atrocious. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Bade Miyan Chote Miyan was also a pan-Indian release. If I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken on that. But yeah, it just depends on certain aspects when it comes to a pan-Indian release.
Yeah, because I think Pan India is maybe more about the actors and the cast that are in it. Whereas
Mm,
like you're right, there are some films that can deliver great content and get the recognition from all over India. Like even if we look at last year, we had what Lapita Ladies, we had Maharaja
yes,
last year,
yes.
which did incredible on OTT platforms. So I think there is still room for films that rely on content. But at the same time, I don't feel like pan Indian cinema is open to all genres just yet. I think it mainly is the masala, the action that it is
Mm,
catered to, right?
yes, yes. But
Like
coming
we're
back
not
to
gonna
your,
get.
sorry, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
go on,
Oh, okay,
go
so
on. It's
so
fine.
just a quick thing. I think another disadvantage of the pan-Indian cinema would be it kind of overshadows the regional movies. So you say like your Lapata Ladies and your what else did you mention? You mentioned
Maharaja. Yeah, Maharaja.
Maharaja. So even though that was a OTT release, it kind of overshadowed. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Pushpa 2 came out around the same time as. No, it didn't. It didn't. But it wasn't as talked about as much. As much as people were saying it's a great movie, and it is. It's a fantastic piece of work. But the only reason I feel the only reason the movie got a lot of like a lot of recognition and word of mouth essentially was because it was nominated for an Oscar. If it wasn't, I don't
Mm,
think a lot of people would be talking about it as much. And I think that's another reason why pan-Indian cinema kind of overshadows your rich storytelling and your down-to-earth slice of life movies. Like you said, pan-Indian cinema is more masala action. Because if you look at the last couple of movies that were pan-Indian movies, Kalki, Pushpa 2, Jawan, um, uh, the movies are RRR.
Leo. Yeah,
All of them are
Leo.
masala
Yeah.
action movies. They're not story-driven movies. Even though I feel like one of those movies, which is Kalki, I feel like that could be that level of rich storytelling because it is a part one.
Mm,
So
yeah.
um, they made the movie with uh they made the movie with intention of creating a universe and making a larger story to it. So um the small budgeted movies would kind of get overshadowed by these pan-Indian movies.
Yeah, but then like okay, I know I mentioned Maharaja Lapita Ladies. Like
Yeah.
Maharaja came out in Tamil first, and then yeah, it blew up on Netflix and stuff. But then I don't know, like I don't think personally, oh, like Pan India's for everyone. I think
Mm.
people have their favorite stars, and there's I think a set roster of people that will
Oh,
be successful in Pan
sorry,
Indian
you
cinema.
you were saying the Vijay Sethupathi Maharaja, not the Maharaj
Yeah,
that was Amir's son. Oh, I was
not the
thinking
Amir
Amir's
Khan
son.
one, no.
Sorry, sorry, sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right. Nah, but yeah, I don't think it's built for everyone. That whole pan
Mm.
Indian system, like people can do their language, like in their own language, and it will work. But I just think pan India maybe is reserved for certain stars now at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
But that just depends on the star because if you look at, um, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name, the Arjun Reddy star. uh,
Oh, Vijay Devakondra.
Vijay Deverakonda. Sorry. He is he when I kind of tried to get a little bit more research on him because before Arjun Reddy, I wasn't very uh like I wasn't very aware of who he was. He isn't considered a very big star when it comes to his industry. And as of recently, I think a lot of people are trying to push him as the star that, and it
Mm,
kind of is forcing his movies to be he's basically trying to be a ghost of what he is in Arjun Reddy. Because if you look at Liger, again, atrocious movie, but it was a pan-Indian. Unfortunately, it was a pan-Indian release. It again, I think they tried to tap into that uh, Arjun Reddy fame and star power, and I think that's
mm,
a lot of what people are making a mistake of when it comes to pan-Indian cinema. They're trying to bank off of the success of one movie and try and represent that in another movie. Because I know there's some kind of effect after S.S. Rajamouli movies that the stars and the
the
actors don't
curse.
really,
Yeah,
yeah, the curse, they don't really get great movies after that. If you look at Ramcharan, he has not been having a great run after RRR. Game Changer
uh,
was a little bit hard to watch. Prabhas as well, he has not been having a great, and he has great star power. His movies like 100 crore first day when it comes to again that owes to the advantages of different languages. It allows the movies to get 100 crore on first day. It allows them to get great records. And back to the SS Rajamouli curse. Prabhas has not been having a great run. Yes, like Saho was a hit. Radhe Shyam wasn't a great movie or a great hit. Adi Purush was atrocious, but people were banking on the star power of Prabhas.
mm.
And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people in pan-Indian cinema are doing is they're trying to bank off of the success of their the actors' movies beforehand that made them this pan-Indian star.
Yeah, and you touched upon a point because there was this journalist that said like the problem or like he was getting annoyed at the fact that he said you're making Vijay Devakondra look like a big star, you know, for Liger, for
Hmm.
like I think the Hindi audience and stuff, but
Hmm.
like you're trying to like gaslit the stove basically in the sense that you're trying to promote this actor saying that he's a big star, but
Hmm.
maybe he's big in one region but not big in the
Yes.
other. Because I think a good example of this, look, I love Vijay, right? He's my favorite,
Yes, it
but
is.
like he is massive. I think Kerala and in like the Tamil, like in Chennai. But when it comes to like the Hindi side, his films don't get that box office recognition they should.
Hmm.
But that's the thing. Like when you try and hype up a star in one region, he might not be as big in that region, right?
100%. Like if you look at the last couple of I don't know whether they were pan-Indian movies. I think they are pan-Indian movies. Game Changer and Devara. They did not do well in the Hindi market at all because people were expecting the level of RRR from both of the actors, and because also both of them had Bollywood actors like Kiara and Janvi, people went to go
Yeah.
watch it, but they were kind of underwhelmed because again, another disadvantage of pan-Indian cinema is the overhype and the disappointment that people feel when they watch the movie. So the makers will like aggressively overmarket the movie. Another example would be Adi Purush. The whole save one seat for uh, Hanuman and basically making this movie seem like a spectacle. But when people knew what they were going to watch when they saw the trailers, because um, the if I go into a whole tangent about Adi Purush, I'll never stop talking about it. So, um, but I think uh, people don't understand that they just need a good movie rather than bank it off of the star. And
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to collaboration of Hindi and uh, the South industry, I feel when it comes to their Bollywood movies, it kind of works in certain aspects. When you look at your Animal or your Kabir Singh or your Jawan, for instances, it did wonders for everyone there. I mean, Jawan is probably considered one of Shah Rukh Khan's better movies when he returned. Uh,
Yeah, definitely.
and
Yeah.
that was a beautiful blend of North and South in Indian cinema, and I think and now it's become a trend now that people are you like if you look at Baghi 4, I can't remember who the director was, but I know he is a South director
Yeah. He
and
works in Canada films. You're right. Yeah.
Kannada films. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's now become a trend that people try and use or not use but kind of collaborate with different directors who aren't necessarily linked in Bollywood. If you look at Jat, that new Sunny Deol movie, I
Yeah.
feel it was very, very, as a lot of people would say, South coded. Um,
Mm,
when it came to another thing would be Baby John because it was a remake of a South
yeah.
original movie. But again, I I love the blend. I will never be a Baby John hater. I love that
Yeah.
movie. Okay, I don't love it. I like it. Um, but I think it was a beautiful blend of bringing Varun, who isn't necessarily a big action star in Bollywood, but I think the way that they presented him in that movie was a notch to him being to getting closer to being an action star because you know that first instance in Baby John or sorry what was the original movie called with Vijay?
Teddy. Oh, it's
Terry, yes,
Teddy.
Terry.
Teddy.
Um,
Yeah.
that first scene where he reveals to everybody that he was actually this super cop of sorts. I think it was so beautifully shot in Baby John. The background music was incredible. It kind of
Mm,
elevated
yeah.
that entire scene, and you can see that Varun was really putting a lot of physical effort when it came to that scene. And I think because of that, I started to like the mass appeal of that movie. And yeah, it has become a trend to now bring different directors and actors into your movies because now you see a lot of South actors coming into Bollywood movies and a lot of um, North North stars coming into South movies. If you look at like a
Yeah.
Kiara Advani is now coming in like in a Game Changer or Janvi Kapoor in Devra and then Rashmika in several movies that she's been doing as of
Yeah.
recent. So yeah, I think it 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 has become a trend that you are now it's more a star driven industry, which I would
Yeah.
say is kind of a disadvantage when it comes to your pan Indian movies because they don't focus on the movie, they focus on the star.
Yeah. And I mean, talking about this collaboration, I mean, I think I've mentioned this film quite a bit on this podcast, but I think it's one which could be used as an example for casting because Rajni's upcoming film Coolie, if you just look at that cast, you have literally one Malayalam actor, one Telugu actor, one Kannada actor,
Yes, yes.
Rajnikant himself, and if the rumor is true and Amir Khan is going to
Amir
be in
Khan.
it, then you literally covered all pretty much all the main kind of states, and
Hmm.
that alone can sell a film. Like, yeah, we love seeing these like collaborations. Even another actor that has done really well, like in films like Vikram and stuff, is Fahad Fasil. Like, he's come into this kind of
Yes.
like jumping around, and he's done well as well. But I'm gonna ask you, who do you think at the moment or in general is the biggest pan Indian star today?
Prabhas. he
Yeah, same.
I feel like he everybody loves him regardless of the types of movies that he does. If it's an Adipurush, people still went to go watch Salaar. It was, and he wasn't in the movie that much. It was like 20 minutes of Prabhas being in the movie, but the movie was sold solely on Prabhas's start. Well, not solely, but majority of the time was on Prabhas. But I feel that he has become such a big star off of Bahubali that he's now making like over 500 crore for each movie that he does. It's like a set standard for his movies. Um, but yeah, I feel Prabhas has benefited a lot from the pan-Indian experience because I don't think a lot of people know a lot of his earlier works. Um, but now
Yeah.
everybody knows him for this larger than life type of movie or actor. So I think he has benefited a lot from the pan-Indian, uh, I don't want to say industry, but I guess experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I that's who I would have exactly said as well. I mean,
Yeah.
even going back to Salah, like you said, he was only for 20 minutes, and he only had like 5 minutes of dialogue. But whenever
Mm,
he was on the screen for that film, it was just amazing. Like especially the
mm,
scene with the whole girl tribe and stuff, the action scene, like
yeah.
that for me was one of like the most amazing scenes I've seen from Indian cinema. Like that presence in that film worked. And you're right, like he's had like Radhe Shyam and stuff, but I just think his craze, his pull at the box office, people are still going because even Kalki did really well at the box office as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you can't say it didn't. So I would say he's definitely one to watch. I mean, like, let's take Alu Arjun for example. Like, this is Pushpa 2 was his first one, right? So it'll be interesting to see now, is he gonna be able to get the same pull as he did for
Mm.
that? Because he's got one with Atlee now, right?
Yes, apparently it's very VFX heavy and they using the same visual effects artists who did Avatar and Term not Terminator. I think it was Avatar, but I saw that teaser trailer and I think a lot of a, a lot of the hype is from how big of a scale the movie is going to be, and of course Alu Arjun. But again, that just gives another reason as to why I say, and you as well, saying it's more of a big scale mass action um, trope now that rather than it being like your Lapata ladies being a pan-Indian experience, more story-driven than um, anything else. And you said that Pushpa 2 was his first pan-Indian movie. Was Pushpa 1 not
But
a pan-Indian movie?
I mean, but correct me if I'm wrong. I did Pushpa 1 come out during COVID, right? I don't know if
It did,
because
it did.
yeah, so maybe. But I mean, like, this was his first, like, big kind of, or like his biggest release
Theatrical,
in the sense that, yeah.
theatrical release. Yeah.
Because literally, I only watched the first one a few days before the second one came out. But, like, that was kind of his first biggest success, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, what are some of your favorite pan-Indian movies?
Oh, you know, the question of favorite is always tricky because I have a number of, so I have to go in. So let me see. Bahubali is definitely a favorite for me. I think that genre of movies, when it comes to period dramas, it always fascinates me. I think when it comes
Hmm.
to scale, when it comes to the cinematography, the sets, the but I think that's also a node to Sanjay Leela Bhansali because he also really does put a lot of effort in his period movies. So I think that was one of the reasons that kind of um, for me kind of was a reason to go watch Bahubali because I never knew any of the stars that were there. It but it was a great experience for me to be open to this different genre, different industry. Uh, Another one for me would be Um, this might take a while. I'm so sorry.
That's
um,
all right. Fine.
Brahmastra. I love Brahmastra,
Okay.
and I know a lot of people have their reserves when it comes to that movie. I love it because of I know it wasn't really a collaboration of different industries. I know they did have um, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is it Nagarjuna, right? Nagarjuna?
Nagarjuna, yes, Nagarjuna. They did have him for like a little bit of the movie. So
Yeah.
that's why I feel like when it comes to pan-Indian movies, I feel like relegating it just simply to the dubbing and the different languages
Mm.
isn't necessarily saying that, oh, okay, because if you look again at Kesari 2 and Java, it wasn't considered a pan-Indian movie, but it was catered to different languages. So as much as a lot of people are saying that it is a pan-Indian movie, it is a big scale, I don't know whether I would consider it, but it for me because it is considered one, I do really enjoy it because the world of anything regarding superheroes just fascinates me, and when done right, when it
Yeah.
comes to the complexities and the nuances of being that hero, I feel it interests me so much. So I think the blend of the superhero-ness with the Bollywoodness kind of interested me a lot. So I would say Brahmastra. I did like Pushpa 1. I know it's not
Yeah.
really considered a pan-Indian movie. I think mainly because of the lore that it was trying to do. It really was great when it came to its world building. Um, and another thing I do really enjoy Kalki. I think Kalki, when it comes to again, the lore and the world building, I feel it really elevated it to a sense where it had great VFX, it had a great world that it
Yeah.
built. And um, any other ones that I can think of, okay, I am going to be a little bit basic and say Jawan. I think
Okay.
Jawan was it was a very great blend of having Atlee and Shah Rukh Khan in a movie that somebody who had mass appeal before mass appeal was actually a thing. I think one of the names would be Shah Rukh Khan. I feel people just love the aura that the man exudes off of himself. So it was a great blend of having him there, Viju Sethupathi, and it it was a very great theatrical experience. If you watch Jawan now on OTT, it's not really the same. So I think that's a few that I can name right now. RRR.
Yeah.
I just blanked on RRR. RRR. I think everybody loved it. I think it again that it gives it just another ode to the brilliance of SS Rajamouli. I think he really puts his best when it comes to his movies. He doesn't just release a movie just for the sake of releasing it. And if you look at
Yeah.
RRR, the nuances, the cinematography, the set, the like the scene where Ram Charan is whooping Junior NTR was such a beautiful scene to watch.
Oh.
And I think that it really resonated with a lot of people in India, not just India, I think all over the world when it came to Netflix. Um, so I think those are the ones that I can think of when it comes to pan-Indian cinema. Um, if you have any more, I feel if you can
Oh,
say.
yeah. I mean, I think my favorite film, I'm just trying to say, I think my favorite film of all time currently is KGF 1. Like I rewatched
Yes,
it this
yes.
year as well. I think the first time I watched it, it was on TV.
Mm,
Watched it in Hindi though on TV, but I actually rewatched it in Kannada earlier this year. Yeah, and
yeah.
that film for me was just, I think it just had such a big turning point for Yash, even Indian cinema industry as a whole. Like it was just such a
Mm,
good movie. The whole mother and son relationship, uh, and if if anyone's seen both Kannada and the Hindi version, the so-called item song during the first half is actually different. Because I know they went with Gully Gully for the Hindi version, but it's actually
Hmm.
not that for the Kannada version. So that, but just that whole film, the whole gold smuggling, like the whole factory thing in that film was good. Even the second
Yeah.
one I loved as well. Like as a whole series,
I
really good.
I feel when it came to the second one, I feel it really, again, I'll say world building a lot because I think it really did
Mm,
make this world of KGF seem so large and so prevalent in the movie that it just made it so it made you as a moviegoer invested in what in this whole world. And yeah, I remember when KGF was coming up, I was excited because when I watched the first one, I was like, this is great cinema. So
yeah.
when I went to watch the second one in theaters, it and I think I watched it in no, I watched it in Hindi because I don't think it was available to us in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. But I did again, that is another reason why pan-Indian cinema works because it kind of um it allows people to relate and be comfortable with watching in their language that they're used to.
Mm,
Uh, but yeah, back to KGF. That movie, it was, and it it kind. A lot of people are saying that it's kind of this new age of angry young man Amitabh Bachchan type of vibes. I heard a lot of people saying that, especially with Yash. And like his introduction alone, forget the movie, the introduction alone of Yash in KGF 2 was so well done. And again, it just, another thing would be the star driven. Like, as
yeah.
much as KGF was a well made movie, it also benefited a lot from Yash after the first one.
Yeah, and I think one more film I'm gonna say is Salaar. The first time I watched it, okay, not gonna lie, in the cinema, it was late, it was tired, I was dozing off. But the second time I watched it at home, I just loved it. I mean, we mentioned it earlier, but I just think
Yeah.
it was, yeah, I just love that film. But now I just want to ask you like one last question. Like, what would you say the future of pan-Indian cinema is going to be like?
The future of pan-Indian cinema. See now, it's hard to really think about what the the future will be, but I think one of the main reasons for the future, or another reason for pan-Indian cinema being the the experience that it is, would be the global market integration. It allows more people around the world to watch cinema that is made for them in different areas of the world. If you look at Animal, the movie made a lot of money in the US market, and that was, I know Animal isn't like isn't a great example when it comes to pan-Indian cinema, but it again it goes back to the economic growth of these pan-Indian movies, that it made a lot of money in the US market, and from what I remember. And a better example for global market integration would be RRR, where they got global recognition, global awards, and um, as well as Kalki as well. Kalki was also widely popular in the US markets, and I know a lot of people are now going to, not people, the makers of movies are now going to China and Japan because they also have this very larger than life type of cinema. And um, And for instance, if we go back to, I know again this isn't pan-Indian, but Amir Khan movies. Um, Secret Superstar wouldn't have been a hit if it wasn't for the Chinese market, because they released it in China and it got so much more money and it became a clean hit. It was actually an average in the Indian market. So again, that's not pan-Indian cinema, but it's now reaching a larger audiences because of your OTT platforms and becoming more pan-global than it is pan-Indian, particularly because of the subtitles and if the dubbing is handled well. Um, Another thing that I can think of would be the technological innovation. If you look at again, Alu Arjun and Atlee's next movie, they are going bigger because I don't think India has the resources as much as Hollywood does. So if you look at again the Atlee and Alu Arjun's next movie, they're going to the makers of Avatar and the and that's probably one of the biggest technological advancements when it comes to movies. So the makers of that are now collaborating with Alu Arjun and Atlee. Again, another thing that I pointed out would be the Ramayana movie where they're bringing stunt directors from Mad Max, and I think there was pictures as of recent where you saw Yash with the stunt director of Mad Max preparing for his role as Ravan. So I think um, the 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 technological aspect of movies will be a big deal when it comes to pan-Indian and be having this larger than life cinematic spectacles. Um, and I feel recently when it comes to pan-Indian movies, they are slowly trying to be more content driven as much as it is this larger than life scale of movies. If you look at Kalki, if you look at Salaar, KGF 2, they're very content driven and basically another way of saying they're building their world very well, or brilliant world building. So even movies like Jawan, as much as it was a high octane built around Shah Rukh Khan's star power, it really did have. Actually, no, it was the social message was there, but it wasn't as prevalent as the action. But the storytelling of these movies will become more prevalent because it's dedicated to more larger audiences. So again, storytelling, I think in Kalki was building to being better. It is getting there, but it still had a very well built world that they made.
Yeah, I mean, even like in terms of future, like even the lineup that we have is big. I mean, we mentioned Alu Arjun, Atli. You also got Rajamouli and Mahesh Babu one, which
Yes,
is gonna be massive because Priyanka Chopra is rumored or confirmed or whatever to be in it,
I
and
think
I
she's
think
confirmed
that's
if I'm not
actually
mistaken.
and I actually think that's a master stroke for the film because she has that appeal outside of India, right? She does
Mhm.
have the Hollywood appeal.
Yes,
So that film is going to attract not just like South Asian eyes, but the rest of the world pretty much.
yes.
But I think for me, now this might be controversial or not, but the one I'm looking forward to the most is Spirit. Now, it's just the
I just
collaboration.
knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I just knew
Now,
you were going to say
regardless of all the controversy, just the fact that Sandeep Reddy and Prabhas are like coming together is going to be this, I think, police-based action film. I don't know. I just think there's some kind of aura that this film is going to like hold. But I mean, let's see.